It's awesome to have your company this week.
We've got some great InFocus highlights lined up for you today, including our very first Food in Focus segment with Sue Rad.
Wow.
We've got some tips from the doc on pregnancy and medication, and a pretty challenging interview on the nature of Islam with Melbourne theologian and missionary Bernie Power.
And speaking of missionaries, Kent, let's kick off the show with an interview you shot on the deck of a boat cruising through the Solomon Islands.
Oh, take me back. Hello again. Well, I'm here in the beautiful Solomon Islands with an enthusiastic group of young people. Speaking of which, I'd like to introduce you to Trevor and Helen Oliver. How are you guys?
Great.
Really well, thanks.
Now, you guys are the coordinators of the Sonship Ministry, which has been operating for how many years in the Solomon Islands now?
10 years now. This is our 10th year.
How did that actually start, Trevor?
Oh, well, when we were youth leaders at Hillview Church, we wanted the youth to go on an exciting adventure, an adventure for God, and so we decided to come here to the Western Solomon Islands.
But what I find interesting about that, Trevor, is that even though you started with the sort of short-term mission trip model, you really have a very full-time project on your hands now, which is the Medicine Ship project. So why are you still organising short-term mission trips for young people?
Well, sometimes we really ask that question, Kent, should we keep going? But every time we bring a group, we have such a wonderful time and they experience such an incredible experience themselves, we say, well, we must keep doing this.
Yeah. Now, Helen, for you, the Solomon Islands and the Western Solomons in particular is a very special place for you. You grew up here, isn't that right?
I did. I was born in Honiara and grew up at Kukundu. For 13 years I was here before I had to go home for school, high school.
And finally you managed to drag Trevor along, but he didn't like it, did he?
No, he hated his first trip. That took me 15 years of married life to bring him here.
Well, there you go. There's a message in persistence for all you married people out there. So we've been here doing a couple of things as a team. I've got my team T-shirt on as well, so I'm right into it. This is what you called embedded journalism, people. Embedded journalism. Right, a part of it. So obviously the Kukundu Clinic was a big part of what we were doing. What was that all about, Trevor?
Yeah, well, 10 years ago, the first team adopted the clinic at Kukundu, and since then, this is the third time that we've come back and rejuvenated it, painted it, added things to it. So this was just a continuation of the first team.
And this whole adopted clinic concept has really caught on, hasn't it? I mean, all across Australia now, we have local churches that have adopted medical clinics in remote areas and in towns and cities, I guess, in Papua New Guinea and here in the Solomon Islands.
Yes, right across the Pacific, yes.
And it all started with you guys.
Yeah, and Hillview Church. Yeah, we had the vision and yeah, it's continued. It's great.
Awesome stuff. So apart from let's talk about the clinic renovations. What have we managed to accomplish there, Helen?
Well, amazing things, really. The first team that's been able to do the inside, the outside, put a covered walkway over, do some landscaping even. What else?
Plus a couple of beautiful murals that the ladies have painted.
That's the best.
That is fabulous.
The locals are just in awe of the artistic gifts these ladies have.
But most of the painting was a little more workmanlike, wasn't it? Just the old roller and brush special.
Yeah. I've got to say it was a little bit easier because of the two teams that went before. They'd done a lot of the prep work, of course, so every time it gets easier and we can do it quicker.
Okay, now another important part of the trip, and I know there were people who came along this time really because they love doing this, is getting out to villages and churches and doing kids clubs. How did you see the success of that this time, Helen?
Just the same as every year. The kids and the local people just are in awe that we all spend so much money getting here just for them. You know, they just really appreciate it. So it's just another, a bonus in their life that they have met so many Australian people that care about them individually. To take time out and money to come and help them. Even if it's just a kids club, it's giving them a blessing to know that there's somebody else in the other part of the world that cares about them.
Yeah. Now, on a more personal level, both of you guys have been, struggling a bit with your health lately. I know you, Helen, had a bit of a scare where you didn't think you'd be able to actually come on this trip, but, thank God you're here. And I've had the misfortune of sleeping in the same house as Trevor and hearing him coughing away at night. So I know, you've got a few struggles there. Does this sort of worry you? Do you, in terms of being able to come out here on a regular basis?
Of course, everybody has a limit to the time they can spend out here. But our philosophy is if God gives us strength, we'll keep coming. And when he doesn't want us anymore, well, that strength will stop. But it's amazing that every day you get up and God gives you the ability to keep going. So we praise him, and we'll continue to do so.
Wow, and something else you were saying to me just before, like a couple of days ago, Trevor, is that medical services and health services in the Solomon Islands are actually really improving, and you're actually wondering if the Medicineship project is really, is there any sense in it going forward? What do you see for the future of the Medicineship project in particular?
Yeah, I think we have to adapt to the times, and certainly there are more small clinics being established in more remote places, and our service might change from being actual medical service to supporting the little clinics that are now emerging. And Kakundu itself is being upgraded as a regional hospital with doctors and extra nurses coming. So our role might be to transport patients, bring people to those services instead of taking the service to them. So
as a sort of a marine ambulance service, is that what you're talking about?
That's very much so, and even the island of Columbunga has got a road going around it that's almost complete, so therefore a land ambulance may be able to do the job that we've had to do by boats. So we've got to be willing to adapt, to grow and to expand with the facilities.
I know the team that has travelled this time has really seen evidence of God's leading. Are there any particular incidents, either during this trip or generally, that have really jumped out?
Look, just first of all, getting here, we always have to provide so much equipment, and this time the ships were all running late. Our crate actually arrived with all our goods on the very day that the team arrived. And we were grateful to God that happened. If it hadn't have arrived, we wouldn't have had any equipment to do any jobs at all. So those sort of things we take for granted back home, but out here we really see God's hand because he makes sure everything comes when we need it.
Hey, God bless you two so much. Your ministry is inspirational, to me personally, as someone who goes to the same church as you. And I know that a lot of our viewers, I really hope you've been inspired by the story and by what's been accomplished just by this one short mission trip and by the years of service that these guys have given. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. It's been great having you on the trip.
Oh man, that looks like so much fun.
It was hard work, Dora. Slogging through the rain most days from the clinic back to where we were sleeping. But yes, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
On the flight back, the plane was delayed. So yeah, while we were waiting, I decided to go snorkeling.
Oh,
it's
nice.
Officially my favourite boarding lounge in the world.
Oh, awesome. Let's take a quick break now. Back in a moment.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope.
Hi, welcome back. We're going to take a look now at 2 health segments from the InFocus archive.
Yes, Doc Wright has some very down-to-earth advice about taking medication while you're pregnant.
Not that I am.
Are you sure? First up though, this is Sue Rad with her first Food in Focus segment ever.
It's great to have Sue Rad back with us. Thanks so much for coming back, Sue.
Thank you, James.
Now, Sue, your last interview had such an impact that we're just delighted to have you back.
Thank you.
But also, I'm delighted that you've agreed to do a regular segment with us.
Yes.
Called Food in Focus. So that's something that, for our viewers to look forward to. Maybe I'll just tell you about your last interview with us.
Right.
One of our team, after hearing that interview and seeing the butter and the extra weight that you gained over the holidays, took it to heart and actually lost weight over the holidays,
Oh, my
cut out a
goodness.
bunch of things. My own wife saw that segment, made a big impact on her. She had me on the scales every day over the holidays.
Well, I hope that prevented excess holiday weight
Well,
gain.
you know,
for
probably
Jane.
I didn't gain as much as I would have. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And we even had emails and messages from around the place. One from the United States, where the writer said that they're just delighted that you have that we have Sue Radd on the show. She has your cooking book, loves it, and is really looking forward to seeing it. So great.
Well, that's great news. And yeah, really happy to be here. And we're going to have a lot of fun.
Great. Now you have a whole host. It looks like a little city skyscraper, cityscape here.
Lots of colours
of
today.
all colours and all kinds of drinks here. Tell us about them.
We're talking today, James, about sugary drinks, so sugar-sweetened beverages, and some really alarming new research in terms of the impact they can have on our health.
Okay, now we all know that we shouldn't drink this stuff because it puts on a bit of weight and it's not great for our teeth. What else?
So we've known for a long time it does fuel excessive weight gain, particularly around sort of the abdominal area. But the newer research suggests it also does promote diabetes.
Right.
However, what's most alarming is this very recent study just presented at the American Heart Association scientific meeting. And what they've shown is that in women aged 45 to 84, who they followed for a period of 5 years, the girls that were drinking about 2 drinks per day, so say it could be a Coke, it could be flavoured mineral water, it could be iced tea, any 2.
Even energy type drinks.
Even vitamin waters, which
Right.
sound really healthy, and sports drinks, just 2 a day compared to having less than 1 a day. These women not only put on more weight, were not only at high risk of diabetes, but had a much higher risk of heart disease. They
Wow.
had 4 times the level of triglycerides in their blood. And these are fatty things in your bloodstream, a bit like cholesterol, that we now know are a major risk factor for heart disease. So that's really very, very surprising.
So let me make sure I understand. It's not just that they put on weight. There was an
They do
increase,
that.
right? There was an increase irrespective of the weight gain. Is that right?
Yeah, the
independent
increase,
of.
That's right, because what they found, strangely enough, it wasn't just that they put on weight and it was the overweight women that were at risk, but actually the women who appeared thin, of normal weight,
Right.
they had an even higher risk if they drank sugary drinks.
Wow. So that's really.
You know, they can certainly put on weight, they're not good for your teeth, they probably drive diabetes, and now we have evidence to suggest that they bring on heart disease earlier.
Now you have a few cups over here. What's this
James,
about?
I thought I'd give you an option today. If you
Okay.
were out and about with some friends
Right.
and, say, popped into the cinemas, you probably
Right.
never get time to go to cinemas. But these are the choices you would get
Okay.
for a beverage. Now, which size do you reckon you would choose? How
Well,
thirsty
I wouldn't take the
would you
biggest
be?
one because
it's quite large, isn't it?
Yeah, that's almost like a little swimming pool, isn't it? But the small one looks a little bit small.
Maybe
so
not
I think-
enough for thirst levels?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit like
So the medium?
Goldilocks. I'll take the medium.
Okay.
Just right.
Well, how many teaspoons of sugar do you think fits into one of those?
Well, it'd just be, let's see.
Why don't you pop some in?
Okay, let's see.
Now think about this. You'd easily, consume all that during the course of a movie.
It'd be a bit, wouldn't it? One,
It
two,
would be a
three.
bit. Keep going. You're going to have to get a
4.
bit faster here.
Well, really? 5. I would say about 6.
I think you need to add some more. This actually provides
Okay, let's see.
960 mils. So this is almost a litre of fluid,
8, 9,
sugary fluid. Keep
10,
going.
11, 12.
Keep
So that's
going.
double.
No. Keep going.
Holy cow. 12, okay. 13, 14.
Hang
I'm
on.
going as fast as I can.
15. I'm going to help you. Shall we just
16,
pour it in?
17.
A little bit more.
Well, let's see. Let's see. 18,
I'll
19,
give you
20.
a tip. It's just a little bit over 20.
Okay, so that's about it, huh?
23
Holy
and a
cow.
half teaspoons of sugar in that sugary drink that you can easily drink. And this is the problem with these sugar-sweetened beverages. You don't feel full after them.
Right.
You can just as easily go and have a big meal after that because they don't satiate. Liquid calories don't make you feel full.
Wow, that's amazing. So I guess
23 and a
I
half.
better stay off the old, the old sugar. That's the last thing I need, right?
Yeah, and the problem with these type of calories, this type of sugar, is it raises your blood sugar very quickly and very dramatically. And high blood glucose levels then raise a hormone called insulin, and that's what we think is linked to all these chronic diseases, the diabetes, the heart disease, all the problems. So a little bit too much sugar, don't you think,
Wow,
for a drink?
I think I better stick to the water. Eh? Just very quickly before we wrap up, if I drank a regular can of fizzy drink, how long would I have to exercise to burn those
Good
calories
question.
off?
Just a small can, so 375 mils, about 40 minutes of walking on average, so quite a bit of exercise.
So every can, I get out there. Well, thank you so much, Sue.
But there's lots of other things you can have, of course. You mentioned the water.
Sure.
You could have herbal teas. You could ice them yourself without any added sugar, or even fresh coconut juice. Lots of other things you could enjoy instead of these kind of drinks that really do make you sick.
What kind of medication can women take during pregnancy, Doc?
Oh, Jay, what a jolly good question. Hi there, everybody, and particularly hi to any pregnant women or those contemplating pregnancy. Medication during pregnancy, not a good idea. Now, the great disaster occurred in the 1960s when a drug called thalidomide, under a trade name, was given to heaps and heaps, tens of thousands of pregnant women as a mild sedative. It worked very, very well indeed, until bit by bit it evolved that women were giving birth to children with horrible birth defects, essentially affecting their fingers, arms. They're being born without arms, or without legs, or without toes, and all these dreadful things, which, 40 and 50 years later, we see the results on television. Every week or two you see a kid who has a thalidomide baby, and the results which are occurring.
Lifelong.
Yes. So since that occurred, the doctor said, OK, no drugs whatsoever, any sort of drugs during pregnancy. Now, that has become modified, and a government body was set up some time ago called the ADEC, the Australian Drug Evaluation Committee.
Okay.
This was set up to look at all medications. Now, they did find that a lot of drugs, a lot of medications are okay. On the other hand, a lot of medications probably have a bit of a risk, other ones have a high risk. So today, and as Medicine in the Journal, the latest ADEC recommendations have come out. They're available on the net, and every drug has a rating: A, B1, B2, B3, nothing to do with vitamins, C, D and X, and that has this rating. And the doctor will look at this, and if you need some medication, he'll look at it as opposed to this rating that it has.
So he'll look at the risks and the returns and really make a very careful decision. Now, some people will have medications in the household that they received prescriptions for before they became pregnant.
Absolutely.
How should they handle that?
Well, how should they handle it? They should simply tell their doctor, look, it might be the same doctor or a different doctor, look, I'm on this for my whatever trouble it is, and he'll have a look at it and say, well, look, that is not a good idea. Maybe we'll change that to something else, which a lot of drugs are available, similar sorts of things, and one may have a good rating, one may have a bad rating. So they can adjust that. But as long as they know, tell a doctor so that you can get the safest medication for you and your baby inside that'll cause no harm. That's the big issue.
So basically, if you have a prescription, you're taking it, you become pregnant, to the doctor right away to figure out whether you keep on it or you get off it.
Absolutely.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks for that very timely reminder. If people want to get more information about health issues in general, where should they go?
Oh, you wonderful man. docwright.com.au tells you everything. Just go to that website and they'll learn all about it and lots more.
And of course, always go to your GP, particularly when it comes to pregnancy.
What a good idea. Yes, absolutely.
Well, there you go, Dora. Some very worthy advice if you happen to have a bun in the oven. Maybe you should keep that in mind for the future, Dora?
Cheeky. Let's take a quick break now. Back in a minute.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. For our last video segment for today, we're taking a look at an interview with a man who's had years of experience living and working amongst Muslims.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
It's great to welcome Dr. Bernie Power to the set. Now, there are very few people you could meet in the world who understand the interaction between Islam and Christianity, as well as Dr. Power, who teaches at the Melbourne School of Theology. Thanks so much for making time for us, Bernie.
Thanks, James.
Now, you spent a lot of time in predominantly Muslim countries in South Asia and also in the Arabian Peninsula. How many years were you in those nations?
About 21 years.
So this is over 2 decades, so you really got to know the culture and also the variations within the religion, how it's practiced during that time. Mm-hmm. What are some of the key observations that you came away with?
Probably the number one would be that Muslims are people just like us. They're people who desire a stable family, a happy family, a good job, a just society. So in those ways, they're just like any other people.
Right, but you know, you say that, but of course, for many of us sitting in the West, we think about 9/11 and also the persecution of Christians, which is going on in many Muslim countries, many predominantly Muslim countries. We have to be honest about that. Why is that happening?
Yeah, I distinguish between Muslims, the people, and Islam, the system. Mm-hmm. And Islam, the system, has come back from a long history of 1400 years of the way that they've operated, and we're still seeing the effects of that today.
So you talk about Islam as a political system. Is that what you mean?
Political, military, economic, social, it's all combined together. For Islam, they believe that it's all part of one system, which is very difficult to break the different elements apart.
So when Muslims move to a country like Australia or New Zealand or the US or other nations around the world, how can they integrate into society if the idea is this holistic religious and civil society, all under the banner of Islam?
For many of them, they use this as an opportunity to move away from Islam, and they don't practice. It's estimated only about 30% of Australia's Muslims would practice Islam. So go to the mosque from year to year. 70% would just
would be nominal.
Very nominal, yes.
But as a person of faith, that really isn't good news either, is it?
No, I don't think so, and it can be the whole secularizing influence of the West that makes things difficult, but at the same time it does remove them some of the strictures of Islamic society and the Islamic system, and Muslims are much more free to investigate other options than they are in their own countries.
Now, I've heard that you've claimed that more Muslims have changed their faith and become Christians during the last few years, I don't remember exactly how many, than in the 1,000 years before that? Maybe just enunciate exactly what your quote is.
Yeah, so we'd say more Muslims have become Christians in the last 40 years than in the previous 1,000 years.
Right. Now, how do you back that up? Who's keeping count?
Yeah, so Professor Dudley Woodbury from the Fuller School of Theology has done some research in this area, and we're finding that both in Muslim majority countries and in the West, many people are turning to Christ.
Now, but we read in the press and we know from reports coming out from a variety of organizations that when Muslims become Christians, there can be very dire consequences. We think of the pastor in Iran who's on the death, being condemned to death. We think of honor killings. How common is this, and how do people transcend, or how do they avoid that problem?
Yeah, it would depend a little bit on the society. In some places this is really quite strongly held to. In others they're much more open and free, and also from family to family. So we knew of families in the Arabian Peninsula where maybe a son had come to faith in Christ and the family was quite okay with that. Okay. So it varies a bit.
It varies from I guess if you were a Christian and became a Muslim, you'd get a varying degree of welcome within the Christian community also, although not normally physical attacks.
No, and we do find that often in Muslim majority countries, people, if they're not executed, then they may be imprisoned, or the family may take pretty harsh action against them. So that does happen.
Now, here we are in a free country, very diverse religious perspectives. We all have friends who are Muslims, we have neighbors and work colleagues. how should we relate to them as Christians?
I encourage people to be very open and very free in terms of connecting with them. Be open about your faith. Don't feel the need to hold back anything. Share with them, pray with them, read the scriptures with them. I encourage people to go for it, because there's freedom here that Muslims won't receive within their own country. So you can do those kinds of things here.
Is there a fear, though, that we will be offensive if we talk about, for example, that the Christian understanding that the only way to reconcile to God is through the life and death, sacrificial death of Jesus Christ, who we believe is not just a man, not just a prophet, but the Son of God? Is that offensive when we share that idea?
It can be offensive. It can also be liberating. And as Muslims come to understand who Jesus really is, and we have friends who have taken this step, it becomes a way for a new life to them. And I think unless we tell them that good news, then they're not going to ever hear it or be able to respond to it. So I encourage people to go for it.
Are there any taboos that we should avoid?
Depends a little bit on the family or the people that you're working with. With a very religious Muslim, we would say gender, don't cross the gender line, so male to male only. Issues like food, what kind of food you'd have in your house and serve them. Those would be the kinds of things.
So stay away from pork.
Stay away from pork.
But that's for me too. So
right, okay, yeah.
Are there things that we could learn as Christians from Muslim society?
They have a great devotion for God, and when I meet a Muslim, I'll often say to them, Muhammad, I really admire your zeal and the fact that you're seeking to serve God as best you can, because I'm the same as that, and we have that in common. So I think that's something that we can pick up. The openness about their faith, they're never ashamed of talking about Islam, and we should never be ashamed of talking about Jesus.
Absolutely. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, is what we're told, isn't it? Exactly. So, I've been to a number of predominantly Muslim countries myself, Jordan, and I grew up in Malaysia. So, and one of the things that I think that is impressive is the level of modesty, no alcohol abuse, and of course, as a vegetarian myself, I appreciate that they're not eating pigs at least. So, how when Muslims look at Western society and see all the decadence, the pornography, the immodesty, all the things that go on here, how do we respond when they say, you want me to become a Christian? I see your societies and they're just mired in decadence.
Yes, I think we need to distinguish between the culture, the majority culture, and the belief of the people. So as Christians we would say, we don't endorse any of those things either. We're just as shocked and horrified about them as you are. We would say, let's go back to the scriptures and read the way that Christ told us to live and seek to follow that rather than following the norms of society. And it would be the same for Muslim people to say to them, within your society there's a fair bit of corruption, there's a fair bit of poverty, there's violence, there's a whole lot of things that Muslims wouldn't be proud of either, but you wouldn't see that as part of the norm of what you're required to do.
We seem to live in a very sinful and fallen world,
we do,
no matter where we are. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you're bringing, Dr. Power. Thanks so much for spending time with us.
Great guy. It was awesome to meet Bernie Power, Dora, but I have to admit, I didn't agree with everything that he said.
Yeah, but, you know, he's not exactly an armchair expert, is he, Ken?
True.
He was there. He's talking from experience, and that definitely deserves some respect.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Still, look, there are some very tough issues there, and I could probably argue the point all day, but we've got a show to wrap up. Thanks so much for your company this week.
Don't forget, this episode and all our previous episodes and video segments are at our website, infocus.org.au. Check it out sometime.
Yeah, please do. Thanks for your company this week. We'll see you next time on InFocus Recouched.
God bless.